So as you mentioned, you're in the center of excellence and you're the group CDO. So I understand, you're serving across the horizontal, right? And so whenever, there is a tech requirement, whenever there's a SaaS requirement from your team, what is your initial approach? Do you ask your team members to kind of, experiment this, do it internally? You guide them to develop it somehow internally, or when there is a, bandwidth issue, you tell them that, go and get it from the market. So how was the approach initially, Pankaj?
So if you don't mind, let me give you a slightly longer answer of
Definitely.
what we have learned, how we approach, and what our current thinking about this topic is.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, you have heard this term enough that it's not about the technology, it's about the business impact.
Business. Yeah.
So when we were set up, our team would, because we have various corporate functions. IT is another corporate function, and so are we. So a lot of people had difficulty in comprehending what does IT and analytics or data, why are they separate and what does it mean, and so on and so forth. So the first question we had to answer, and we continue to answer with our stakeholders, is to say, what's the distinction between the IT function and the analytics function? Very fair question, because there are two COEs. That COE has been there far longer, because IT has been a corporate function for a long while. Analytics was such set up much later. So I think the way we are describing, and my colleague who leads IT, we kind of talk to each other and say, how do we explain this to people so that people have a good understanding of what we all do and how do we collaborate and so forth. So the answer to that question that we have come up with, we are saying, in any company, you'll have IT systems, operational systems, which capture data. You have the SAPs, you have CRM, and many such systems. So those are the various IT systems. Then you have the infrastructure, which is the cloud and server and so on and so forth. So the infrastructure layer and the application layer, those are two which are mostly the IT team's goal, which they have always done. I think so those two layers, the infra and the app layer, is what the IT team has been primarily responsible for. I think what has happened more recently is a lot of data has started to come in.
Exactly.
So more specialized skills are required to harness the power of data to take better decisions. So the next two layers is what the analytics team sort of takes care of. So those capabilities really are, so just like you had infrastructure and app as the two capabilities in the IT layer, here the capability is the data management, the data lake. How do you capture data? Where do you store it? How do you make sure data is governed? How do you make sure it's correct? So that's the whole data engineering and the data management layer. And then on top of it is the data science layer or the analytics layer, to say, how do you make sense of it for the business? So you want to make the logistics people take better decisions, or the marketing people take better decisions, or the energy management people take better decisions. So net, we are looking at it as a stack with 4 layers. Infra and application, which is the core for the IT teams, and then data management and the data analysis is the core for the the analytics team. Now I think everyone should know all, but someone will be more experienced in one or the other, because they all have to work together. You can't say that I just know one and I don't know the other. So we encourage everyone to know all the layers, although you may have a specialization or a deeper skill in one of these 4. So that's how these things stack up. Now, if you think about our role, it is closer to the business to enable them to take better decisions. So the goal of our CEO is to say, we will create a data culture, which means you can take better decisions on a day-to-day basis, right? So therefore, if the logistics people can take a better decision on how to organize their logistics, marketing people can take better decision on how to organize their marketing spend, the energy people can take better decision on how to optimize their energy spend, procurement people, right? To think of various businesses and functions who are taking decisions related to whatever their business need is, right? So that's the goal that we are saying, how do we help you take better decisions? And therefore, what we did was, we did a reflection on our own team, what we have been doing last 3 years, and how do we want to approach the future.
Sure.
So last 3 years, since I have been there and many of the team members have been there, our teams have been going to business and say, you know what, I can help you optimize your logistics. So you give me the data, I will work with you, optimize. Okay, this thing that we have done can be used by others also.
Sure.
We'll go to you, we can help you do better sales targeting or better customer service. If done one place, we can do it elsewhere, because we are a large group. So we think that if we can do it in one place, then you can also replicate it elsewhere. So that's what we do. So try out things, create some IP, which can then be reused by others.
Sure.
So we believe that a central team's main role would be to create IP of new ideas, new things, which when done here can be done elsewhere.
Replicated to the different verticals.
Absolutely.
Like Hindalco and Ultratech.
And therefore, now the approach that we have come up with, because what we do is, when we do it, we then give it to them to run. So we do a BOT, that while we have done it for you, I think now you have to run it on a day-to-day basis. So we have looked at ourselves as a central, more like a innovation team or an R&D team, which does new things, and then the factory sort of goes into production. So think of us as
Sure.
an R&D team and the business as a factory. So the change the business happens here, run the business happens there. So we
Sure.
transfer the thing to them, and therefore they need to have the talent to manage it. They need to have the funding to continue to support it. They need to also sometimes take over the relationships with our vendors or our startup partners, because many of these solutions are not just our own. We bring a bunch of people to do that. And over time, we have also tried to figure out how to make sure that the problem that we work on are innovative, scalable, and aligned to the strategy of the business. So net today, our common language of driving AI-led transformation is sort of a 3-layered framework that we have now distilled based on our own learning to say, how do we operationalize data culture? Because the goal is you as a COE create data culture, nice vision statement. When you have to operationalize it, now there is a framework to say, and we call it the 3W framework. Ways of thinking, ways of working, and ways of doing.
Sure.
Now, the doing part is well understood. Everyone knows it and everyone focuses on it. So for us, doing meaning data science, data engineering, and data architecture. These are the capabilities our team members have that space. So we have been focusing a lot on this here, doing things. Now we realize if you have to create a culture, we have to develop the other 2 layers also so that it scales and sustains, because you can't do it just one time. It has to scale and it has to sustain over time. So that's the intent. So the other 2 layers which we have now sort of reflected and come up with are in the middle, which is the ways of working layer, has talent, funding, ecosystem partnership, and adoption. So talent mean that what type of people should you have, what kind of training should your people have, what type of org design you should have. So those types of things we get involved in helping the businesses to do the talent part, because unless they have the right talent, they can't take it over and run it. On funding, how do you decide what to buy, how to buy, how much to pay, some of those things, what is the ROI of this initiative? So those types of topics get covered here. Ecosystem is how do you evaluate a vendor, how do you take a startup partner, and how do you work with that? So there are things over there. Adoption is how do you do design thinking, how do you make sure that these things are sustained and they are not right. And then the ways of thinking layer is really trying all this to the strategy. So the projects that we should work on should be tied to strategy. They shouldn't be like, we should be just doing something because someone said so. So the top 3 boxes on the ways of thinking layer is strategy, governance, and AI maturity.
Sure.
So strategy box really means that if you have to work on projects, it should be derived from strategy. So the action over there for our team is to do a workshop with the business team to say, what's your business strategy? How do we conduct workshops? We look at annual reports, we look at analyst reports, we talk to the strategy team, we talk to our M&A team. We try to form a point of view about what is critical to that business. And then we go to the business people, talk to them, understand from them, and together come up with a set of projects which we think are innovative and transformative, which can help those business. And out of them, the most critical one we will take upon ourselves because we have to experiment. And some others, they'll also do. So at the end of the workshop, there can be many projects. The innovative ones or the risky ones we'll take up. The simpler one we'll say you can do it. It's anyway, So we take on the risk rather than let them take the risk. And things when done can be transported. And governance is all about just maintaining it. AI maturity is all about measuring all the other things to say how are we doing. So net, if you think about this 3W framework, it is a common language across group companies which are very diverse, from metals to cement to retail to paints and all of that. So it's almost like saying that, when I was a Six Sigma guy back in GE, we used to have a common framework for continuous improvement called DMAIC for Six Sigma, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So the way we have framed it, what is the DMAIC equivalent for ABG, and what is the language that all group companies can use? All of them can also learn from each other. So if you look at this 10-box framework of strategy, governance, AI maturity, people, funding, ecosystem adoption, data science, data engineering, data architecture, all these 10 boxes, we are creating reusable components that anyone else can use. The reusable component in the bottom layer is really a piece of code, but the reusable component in the top layers, those 7 boxes, are frameworks and examples from other places.
Sure.
So let's say Hindalco company has a program to say, we will send a dozen people from various factories for a 6-month internship to learn data science so that they can go back and implement and run. Now, this is a reusable component that anyone else can use. Similarly, in the cement company, there's a unique way of looking at funding. They're saying, this is a topic on which we want to invest 100 rupees. We think that we'll do 10 initiatives. 6-7 of them may fail, but 3 will succeed. So our funding mechanism is almost like a VC. Sure. That some will succeed, but we'll measure at a portfolio level, not at a project level. So I think we are figuring out together and inventing ways of thinking about all of these topics in our group companies, and once done in one place, transfer that idea to others. So if someone can do this VC type approach to experimentation in one company, why can't everyone else do? Similarly, if someone can do a talent program in one company, why can't everywhere else do? Similarly, for all the other topics about how do you do the strategy workshop, how do you do the governance and all that. So net, we are trying to develop all these 10 muscles for all the group companies, and frankly, utilizing the same framework for developing our team members as well. So we look at these 10 muscles as a full stack human being for an individual and full stack for a team. And we believe that transformation is not really a technical problem. And the software and technology is a good thing. But unless we are aligned to strategy and unless we have developed a way to scale and sustain, this remains incomplete. So that's the sort of big picture. So when you ask the question about how do we take technology decisions, I think we start thinking about it from an overall business decision and within that a technology decision. So many a times if someone says, I need to buy XYZ, we would go back and say, why do you want to buy that? What are you trying to think about? So we look at the strategy, what are their approaches? And many times we will say, oh, for this, you actually don't need to buy anything. There are things which are already available that others are using. With some modification, you can use it yourself. So we are creating a library or a pool of reusable components, whether software or otherwise, which others can use. And we believe a lot more in this open source sharing mechanism rather than buying too much of packaged software and getting tied into it. So that's the general philosophy and the thinking that we are having.